Thank you all for being here this evening. My name is Harry Spritas. I'm the innkeeper here at the Ocean Plaza Beach Resort. And tonight's lecture is by Kris Williams of the Caretta Research Project on Wausau Island. Kris Williams is originally from Long Island, New York, and she graduated from Buffalo University and studied biology. So I'd like to go ahead and welcome Kris Williams at this moment, and thanks again for joining us this evening.
Hi. I'm going to thank Justin and Harry and Ocean Plaza for inviting me to talk to you all about turtles, and thanks to you for coming to hear about turtles and the project on Wausau. Have any of you, I know a lot of you have seen turtles, have any of you seen nesting turtles back, or have worked with turtles before? Yes? So most people have seen turtles, seen turtles, seen nests, so a lot of this will probably look familiar to you. Hey, what I thought I'd do tonight is go over a little bit first about why sea turtles are important, go over the 4 different species of sea turtles that you might see off the coast of or nesting on the coast of Georgia or in the water, and then sort of walk you through a typical season of what we do on Wausau to protect the turtles, and then tell you a little bit about what we've learned in the 40 years of the project. Okay, first, why protect sea turtles? Sea turtles are extremely important ecologically. They're part of many different ecosystems. They're part of the beach, coastal rivers, marshes, coral reefs, grass beds, and open oceans, and they range from Arctic waters all the way to the tropics. So they are all over the world. And their presence affects these ecosystems. And I figured I'd give one local example, the dune systems that you see on the Georgia barrier islands. Sand does not hold or protect vegetation very well, but turtles deposit their eggs, deposit their nests all along the edge of the dunes and in the dunes. A lot of these eggs sometimes don't hatch. These nutrients are incorporated back into the dunes, which promotes good vegetation growth, protecting the dunes, which protects your islands, and they also make important habitat for for beach organisms. So that's just a local example of why turtles are important. And I'll go through the 4 different species that you might see in Georgia. The first is the green sea turtle. Green sea turtles are not called green because of the color of their shell, but of the color of their fat. They're the only vegetarian species of sea turtles, and they eat seagrasses, primarily seagrasses as adults. And this apparently makes them the most delicious species, because this is what you're probably going to be served in areas like the Cayman Islands or different areas, not in the US, but that does serve sea turtles. And the reason that that numbers have declined are because they were harvested for their meat as adults, and also because of the collection of eggs. And this is a picture of a typical slaughterhouse in maybe Latin American area. The poachers would just walk down the beach, and this is all years ago. Poachers would just walk down the beach, flip over the turtles as they came up to lay their eggs, and then when the sun came up and they stopped coming up to lay, then they would go and process all the turtles. It's a devastating sight. The second species you might see are the leatherback sea turtles. Leatherback sea turtles typically nest in more tropical areas, like Florida, Costa Rica, Latin American countries. These are a very common sight in the late spring and early summer as they start heading back up to their northern foraging grounds off of Canada. If you're ever in your boats and you see a school of jellyfish out in the water, they eat primarily jellyfish, so you might be likely to see a leatherback sea turtle. They are the largest species of sea turtle. Typical nesting size is about 650 to 800 pounds. The average carapace length is about 5 foot long. The largest leatherback ever found was a dead male that washed up in Wales years ago, and he weighed about 2,000 pounds. These are huge, huge animals. And we have had sporadic nesting in Georgia. They do nest in Florida as well, but we've had one leatherback nest on Wausau. She first came up in 2001. She came up again in 2005 and again in 2010. So it's pretty exciting that she keeps returning to Wausau. Okay, the third species is the Kemps Ridley sea turtle. This is the most endangered species of sea turtle, but it's the second most common species that you'll see off the coast of Georgia. They, a lot of times, will go up and forage off of the New England coast, which is a very productive foraging ground. They primarily nest in Rancho Nuevo, Mexico, which is about 3 hours south of Brownsville, Texas, on the Gulf of Mexico. And they are threatened, or their numbers have declined the most because of adult harvest, and also egg collection. Eggs were collected primarily, well, for food, but also because they're thought to be aphrodisiacs. So there's a lot of times you can even now, go into a Latin American bar and order a shot of cacique and a raw turtle egg, and you're good to go. And the fourth species is the most common species that you'll see, which is the Loggerhead sea turtle. These are called loggerheads because they've got huge heads compared to the other species of sea turtles. Nesting female size that we see on the beach is typically about 250 to 300 pounds, about 100 centimeters for the carapace, the shell. And loggerhead numbers are down for the same reasons, for for egg harvest and adult harvest, but they also face a number of other challenges as well. Okay, first is beachfront development. Everybody wants to go to the beach. I want to go to the beach. I vacation at the beach, live near the beach. But beachfront development does sometimes degrade nesting habitats. And along with beachfront development comes beachfront lighting. Lights disorient the adults and the hatchling sea turtles. So when the adults come up to nest or the hatchlings are emerging from their nests, they will follow the lights. And I've heard tragic stories about adults after they nest going down into like very popular Florida parking lots and over A1A. And of course, the commercial fishing industry. We're most familiar with shrimp trawling. Whenever the fishing industry or the fishing season opens, strandings do increase. However, in the late 60s late 60s, early 70s, Georgia shrimper did design the TED, the trawler excluder device. There's a picture of it right here. And that was designed to decrease bycatch, unwanted bycatch in nets. And essentially what it is a grate placed towards the end of the net. Anything that's your target catch size or smaller will fit through the grate and end up in the net. Anything larger will just hit the grate and get ejected, generally just get ejected through a trapdoor. And this has cut down on sea turtle mortality by about 50% and on bycatch by about 70%. It's not only human challenges, it's also natural challenges. Everything likes to eat turtle eggs, turtle hatchlings on the beach and in the water. Our biggest challenge on Wausau are raccoons. We're very lucky that we don't have very many hogs at all, although this past year we did somewhere get about at least 6 or 8 red fox. I'm not sure where they came from. They probably swam over, but they were certainly a challenge to us this year. And then as soon as they hatch, raccoons and birds like to eat the hatchlings. And as soon as they hit the water, then fish, frigate birds, sharks, at all life stages eat turtles. So these are the four species of sea turtles that we see and why their numbers are down. And what are we doing to help? The Caretta Research Project is a partnership between the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service Savannah Coastal Refuges, Wausau Island LLC, and the Savannah Science Museum. And the goals are to learn more about sea turtle reproductive biology and population and nesting trends, to increase the survival of eggs and hatchlings on a nesting beach where usually predators would get most of the nests or the nests would be washed away by the spring tides, and also to educate and physically involve the public in sea turtle conservation efforts. And 2 aspects make Caretta very unique. We are currently the longest continuously running saturation tagging program in the US. Little Cumberland This is our 40th year. Little Cumberland, I think, went 46 years, 46 or 48 years, and they stopped tagging a couple years ago. So right now we're the longest running saturation tagging program, and this makes Caretta very attractive to other research institutions for collaborative research projects. And the second reason is we are a volunteer-based project. We are run sort of like a small-scale Earthwatch project where people pay to come out and work with us for a week. And we train them, we give them all the training they need. We have volunteers primarily from the United States, but we've also had them from Canada, Denmark, England, Switzerland, and France. So people have come from all over to work on the project. And the ages have ranged from about 14 to 78 years old. You get some really interesting crews. Okay, so the conditions out on Wausau are pretty rustic. The Wausau Island LLC rents us 2 cabins that's sort of on the outskirts of their property. It is in the middle of a national wildlife refuge, but on Wausau there is a private parcel of land out there. The cabins are extremely rustic. There's no electricity, lights, fans, AC, anything in either of the cabins. And we do have an indoor toilet and an outdoor cold water shower. And then in the staff cabin, there is limited electricity, so people can charge their cell phones, laptops. Everybody brings all kinds of technology out there these days. It used to be so quiet, but no longer. Yeah, and most of our work is done at night. Wausau is between 6.5 and 7 miles long, and we run the beach each night on Kawasaki mules, patrolling, looking for signs of sea turtle activity. What we're usually looking for are these tracks. The tracks are huge. So even though we run without lights, so we're not disturbing the turtles, the tracks are typically very easy to see. And as soon as we see a track, we turn off the mules, and one person will sneak up, follow the track and sneak up behind the turtle and see what stage the turtle's at in her nesting process. Because if she's still digging around and maybe just starting to dig her nest chamber, then she could be still very skittish. And if we disturb her, she could easily, abort her nesting attempt and head back into the water. But as soon as she drops maybe 15 to 20 eggs, she's almost in a trance. And that's when we go up to her, check for tags, tag her, take any kind of data that we need to take, and they don't abort their nests. Okay, so we use 2 kinds of tags on Wausau. The first is an Inconel tag, that metal catalier tag. It's got a series of 3 letters and 3 numbers on the tags, and we put 1 tag in each of the 2 front flippers. And on the back side of the tag, there's an address for the University of Florida Archie Carr Center for Sea Turtle Research, and they're the ones that distribute tags to all over the eastern U.S. and the Caribbean. So if anyone is walking on another beach and they see a turtle nesting, or they see a dead turtle, or somehow find a turtle with a tag, they can report those tags to the Archie Carr Center. They'll report that data to us, and then we get a good idea of where our turtle has been. Then we also use pit tags for the turtles. They're the microchip tags. A lot of vets use them for the dogs. It's just a subcutaneous tag injected just underneath the skin. And then we've got scanners that can scan, and those have a much higher rate of tag retention. So even if the turtles lose their Inconel tags, they come up, 6 or 9 years later, we can still scan them and identify that turtle as that same individual. Okay, so a little bit about turtle biology. They don't come up and nest every year, but they will nest every 2 to 3, sometimes 4 years, sometimes longer. But every year that they do come up to nest, they nest anywhere from 4 to 8 times. And each clutch is an average of about 120 eggs per clutch. So each individual turtle during her reproductive year deposits anywhere from like 600 to 1,000 eggs per season. Okay, after they're done depositing their nest, they'll cover the eggs. They'll cover their clutch with their hind flippers. Then when they're done packing it down, they'll start flinging sand and making a huge body pit to try and cover the olfactory and visual evidence of the nest. Doesn't deter predators very much, but it sure takes us a long time to find a nest sometimes after they do that. And then they head back into the water. You'll note all of the really nice dawn shots. We don't take that many pictures at night. Hey, sometimes the turtles lay in an area that we know isn't going to be a very good area towards the end of the season. If it's a little bit too close or in the rack line or near the neap high tide line, we'll take the eggs and carefully relocate them and bury them a little bit closer to the dune line just so they won't get inundated by the next spring tides. And then we protect each nest with two different kinds of screening to protect them from predators. And you can see that's a hatch nest. You can see the big hole where the hatchlings have emerged from. And about 55 to 60 days later, you get hatchlings. Hey, hatchlings typically emerge, they spend a couple days within the nest chamber. They'll start emerging from the eggs and crawling to just underneath the surface of the sand. And when they're ready to hatch, they'll wait for the sun to go down and that temperature to drop. And that drop in temperature is their cue to emerge. Otherwise, they're much more visible to predators, and the sun is just too hot, and a lot of them may get overheated and bake on the beach. And you can see they typically, in a natural setting, head straight down to the water. So that's what we do typically on Wausau. We've been doing this for 39 years now, and what have we learned? If you look at historic nest numbers, in the 39 years we've been doing this, we have seen a significant increase in nesting on Wausau since 1973. And since it takes between 25 and 35 years for loggerheads to reach sexual maturity, we hope that this is the result of the conservation efforts in the early years. Then the bottom graph is a graph of loggerhead nesting in Georgia, thanks to Mark Dodd from Georgia DNR. And the whole Georgia coast has been carefully monitored since 1989. So this shows 22 years of monitoring on the Georgia coast. And it's too soon to make any definitive statements, but there is a significant increase, and the next decade will certainly be an important one to watch. Hey, where do loggerheads go? In 1997 through 2002, we worked with Grays Reef National Marine Sanctuary and also the University of Delaware, and we put satellite transmitters on 14 turtles after they nested and watched where they go. And 13 went north and 1 went south, and then her tag died off of Jacksonville. So we don't know what happened with her. But the other 13 went north, and the lines with the arrows was their general track. They would go off of the Chesapeake Bay area, Delmarva Peninsula area, which is excellent foraging grounds, where they would renourish themselves after a full season of nesting. And then as the waters turned colder, they would come back down south and overwinter on the North Carolina-South Carolina border. And then the blue dots that you see, remember I said before that we could get tag returns from people calling in to the Archie Carr Center from people finding our tags. We have had tag returns either from fishing boats, nesting on other beaches, or stranded turtles. And our turtles have been found from Gulf Shores, Alabama. That's the farthest south we've had our tag returns, and the farthest north is off the map. It was a gravid turtle that stranded in Montauk Point, New York, on the very eastern end of Long Island. So that's a huge range that our turtles are going. But most of them you can see are probably from nesting beaches along Georgia and South Carolina, and some in North Carolina. Hey, we never like to see a dead turtle, but once in a while we do get a dead turtle wash up on the beach, and sometimes they're in good enough condition that we can do a necropsy on them and find out what they've been eating. And we have found that loggerheads eat pretty much anything they can. We found many different species of crabs, mollusks, jellyfish, horseshoe crabs. They're pretty opportunistic eaters. The then we've been doing a lot of work with Georgia Southern University. Since 2000, we've done numerous projects with them. And one thing that we've been looking at was the sex ratios. Turtles have temperature-dependent sex determination, which means that the sex of the hatchling is determined by in general, the middle temperature of the incubation period. The temperature of the middle period of incubation. So we put on Blackbeard Island and Wassaw Island data loggers, which is that white casing. There's a data logger in there that will record the temperature throughout incubation for every 2 hours. And we could get the temperature of the middle third of incubation and estimate sex temperatures, or the sex ratios. We put them in 440 nests between Blackbeard Island and Wassaw, and we determined that we're putting out about 30% males from Wassaw and Blackbeard. And you can see most of the males are produced in the early season, which makes sense because that's when temperatures are the coolest. And one interesting thing that we did find was the mean incubation period, or the mean incubation temperature from 2000 to 2010 increased just over a full degree Celsius, which is an interesting thing to watch. 10 years is just a snapshot in time, but it's something that we are monitoring. Another project that we're doing with Georgia Southern University is looking at multiple paternity in Georgia's loggerheads. And we know that sea turtles do store sperm, and we know that multiple paternity does occur in most sea turtle species. And one of the students at Georgia Southern found that 72% of the nests on Wassaw were fathered by more than one turtle, or more than one male. And there was an average of 2.6 fathers per nest that did show evidence of multiple paternity, and the record was 7 fathers in one nest. And this is just a subset of samples from one nest. So that was pretty exciting. We're also doing research with Armstrong Atlantic University with Dr. Catherine Craven. Loggerheads, they've got a pretty good hatching success rate, between 60 to 70% hatching success, but there are lots of eggs that don't hatch, and she was wondering if it was something wrong with Georgia's males, if Georgia had a fertility problem. And she did find that there was no fertility problem. When the eggs are deposited in the nest, they're held internally for a while after fertilization, and when they're deposited at a mid-gastrula stage, which is just like a little ball of cells, so she can see through a microscope when she collects the eggs, all the unhatched eggs that they had been fertilized. But she did find that there were lots of different species of fungus and bacteria in the nests, and she is pursuing research on those different species of fungus and bacteria to see how they affect the nest. And one of the most exciting projects that we're a part of is a genetics project with the University of Georgia with Dr. Brian Shamblin. He started in 2005 with the mission to make a database with a genetic tag of every nesting loggerhead from North Carolina to North Florida. And so he had people on beaches everywhere collecting samples for him. And he had over 13,000 samples from North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, and North Florida since 2006. And he has found that first of all, he's been able to fill in all kinds of data for us from those samples that he collects. He makes a map of the mitochondrial DNA, which is the genetic tag of the mother. It's passed down by the mother. So if we get an egg from Wassaw, or a sample from Wassaw, and there's another sample from Folly Beach, North Carolina, that has that same DNA, he can match 100% certainty that that was the same turtle that deposited those nests. And he's filled in all kinds of data, like how many nests each individual turtle deposits every year. He's found turtles nesting on 4 or 5 different islands throughout the summer, and he's also found turtles that have nested from Wassaw all the way up to Bald Head Island, North Carolina. So it's pretty exciting that he can get that kind of definition. He's also found, just in Georgia alone, 30 first-generation nesters, which means mother-daughter pairs that are nesting, and also 35 sister pairs of nesters. So the genetics research in Georgia has been really exciting. Hey, so that's some of the research that we've been doing on Wausau since '73. So what can you do to help protect turtles? If you want to spend a week on a very humid island with no conveniences from home, you can come and participate on the Caretta Research Project, and we do have 20 openings still for this upcoming summer, and I'd be happy to talk to anybody if you're interested. Don't disturb nesting turtles, and please educate people on the beach. I know you guys do a great job of educating people on the beach when they come down. I've got people still coming up to me and telling me, yes, my kid rode the turtle. And you know, so we just try and keep the disturbance down and flashlights down. Call the authorities if you find a nest or a stranded turtle. Don't litter, always leave the beach or the waterways cleaner than when you came. And boaters beware. DNR has told us that there has been an increase in boat strikes in sea turtles, and they are reptiles. You know, they do come up and breathe air before diving again. So if you're out in your boats, if you could just have people keep your eyes open and look for turtles on the surface, that would help a lot. And also, we're always looking for boat captains to help out on Caretta. If anyone has a boat and wants to transport crews to and from Landings Harbor to Wausau and back, we would love to talk to you. So, hey, since '73, we have tagged over 1,100 loggerheads, protected almost 3,000 nests, and released over 213,000 hatchlings into the water, all with the help of over 2,000 volunteers from all over the U.S., primarily the U.S. and all over the world. And I just want to thank U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service Coastal Refuges and Georgia DNR and all of the foundations and companies and individuals that have supported the project since '73. And I would be happy to ask or answer any questions if you would like.
How did you get into turtles?
Luck.
Yeah.
I was up in New York, and there was an opening in the Turtle Project off of Hampton Bays on Long Island, and they actually also had a marine mammal program that I was more interested in, and I thought, well, I'll just go there and work my way, and after like 2 weeks of turtles, I was hooked. So it doesn't take much to get hooked to turtles. Yes?
You say Denise, if you have a hatchlings, these were hatched by humans?
These were. That's just determined from the hatching success of all the eggs, of all the nests on Wausau. We didn't actually physically incubate them and count them and release them. We just know through counting eggshells and knowing how many eggs were in most of the nests. That's how we determine that. But we don't physically, take them and hatch them and release them. We try and make it as natural as possible. Mm-hmm.
What do you tag in the males?
We don't tag the males. Those
Statistics going, well, how do they know just the DNA tracking?
because the DNA of the males is determined through the nuclear DNA, and so they can tell that from samples from the nest, like if we have dead hatchlings or eggshells. So the mitochondrial DNA is passed down from the females, and the nuclear DNA is passed down from the males. But we never see males. Yes. We don't, the males never come up on the beach. So they have no reason to come up on the beach. So the only data we ever get from males is if they're stranded or if they're caught in specific projects that are trawling for turtles.
Does dredging affect the turtle population?
Yes. All dredging operations are required to have endangered species observers on them. And they're always on the lookout for turtle takes. And all of those have to be reported, and if enough, there are different limits for the different species depending on the status, and after they reach that limit, then the dredges are shut down.
So does a turtle go out and they sleep during the night, or do they always stay awake?
A lot of the nighttime activity that we've seen through satellite telemetry is they are active, just not as active. But they're still diving, coming up, and moving around. It's just much slower.
Do they go real far out?
Not typically. We have had turtles that have gone out to graze reef. We have had turtles that'll go up the coast in between their nesting events and then come back down to nest, like go all the way up into South Carolina and then return to Wausau to nest, or they'll just nest up there. And we've also seen them go up the rivers. We've had turtles that have nested on the south end of Wausau, that have gone behind Wausau and then up towards the Vernon River, but not that far, and then back.
Does the full moon affect them?
Not really. No. No, they nest anytime, any tide, any moon phase. Yes.
You mentioned problems with predators getting into the nest, predatory animals. Have you ever seen problems with land roots?
Yes.
In the nest as well?
Yes, we have. Yep, not often, but sometimes when they nest way up in the dunes near certain plants, we'll dig up a nest that should have hatched after 70 days, and all of the eggs will be surrounded and desiccated by the roots. Good question. Yes.
I have a question about genetic nesting. All right, so we saw the temperature in the nest go up. Does that mean that there are more females?
That could very well be.
And
yes.
Do we get any indication from the turtles about any of the warming of the ocean because they are nesting farther north?
Not yet, but it's something that we're looking at. It's definitely something that we're monitoring. As the temperatures get warmer, they could alter their behaviors in many different ways, and one way is to nest, change the timing of their nesting, or to change the latitude of their nesting. So, but we are monitoring that. Mm-hmm.
What is the cost to stay on Wausau?
Now it costs $750 for the week, and we are a nonprofit, so part of that is tax deductible. Participation fees pay for about 60% of our operations, our yearly operations. And that includes transportation over there and back and food, and I have to say we eat pretty well. It's not like ramen and peanut butter and jelly. That's the one thing that we can offer that's good. There's no air, no nothing, So we do try and keep you well fed.
So that's brought it.
Yes. There's no ice after the first day or two, but the food's good.
How many people go?
Up to 6 volunteers per week. So we can accommodate, there's 16 weeks, so we can accommodate 96 people per season, and we usually get about 80 to 85. It's harder to fill the very beginning and very end weeks because students are still in school and parents, teachers, students can't come.
That's awesome.
So, yes. In the nesting process? I have seen horrible pictures of turtles crawling over garbage and nesting underneath lawn chairs that are, thrown aside. But those are pretty isolated instances. Do you see that? Do you see?
We do have trash mainly on the south end.
Do you?
But we don't have many nests or crawls on the south end because it's so populated.
Okay.
But yes, we have seen that, or chairs that are left on the beach. We did have a nest last year that was under someone's tent that they left on the beach.
Oh my gosh.
So that was,
Okay.
they do, obstacles do get in.
Yeah. Now, on Wausau, we don't see that very often. The beach is relatively clean, and on the very north and south ends where most of the people go, and actually most of the people leave that, they take their trash with them, or they put piles for us to pick up, which we do, happily. Yep, I think that's great. We're happy with that. But really, it's not a problem on Wausau, but it is a problem on other beaches.
Is it very much a problem in the ocean? I've seen pictures.
Yeah.
Is it
Plastic bags and the plastic patches out there, yes. I know that the strandings that we get usually aren't in good enough condition that, we get good gut contents typically, but I do know plenty of organizations that have found lots of trash in their necropsies.
How many nests did you have last year on Wausau?
It was a record, 106, it was 160, I think. So, and the year before that was a previous record. So we were, I know, dare to dream.
What about on Tybee? Are there any?
We have nine. We have
Nine?
Our average is 7 to about 7 to 9. That's we have 9.
You had a lot on Little Tybee though, didn't you?
16.
16, that's awesome. That's great.
How big is Wausau?
7 miles. The beach is 7 miles. It's about 2,000, Wausau Island itself is about 2,000 acres. And the refuge, the whole refuge, which includes Pine and Romilly Marshes and Little Wausau, is about 10,000, just over 10,000 acres, I think. The beach is about 6.5 to 7 miles. Mm-hmm.
So with the lionhead fish invading, and since they're not indigenous, and the introduction of sharks because of the man-made poachers, that means more jellyfish on our coastlines. Is that why we might see an increase in turtle population, perhaps? Weighed out with the other bad stuff that's happening?
I don't know if that, I don't think that that will counter that with all of the other challenges that turtles face. That probably won't counter it, but it'll certainly help. You know, to good food production is always going to help. But
So the lionfish don't eat jellyfish.
I don't know what lionfish eat. Do you know what lionfish eat?
Mostly the
Not
fish.
Other fish?
They eat
Okay.
everything else. They're amazing.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah, has anyone figured out the survival rate of each nest?
Of each nest?
Yeah, in other words, have you taken the amount of hatchlings per nest? I don't know if there's a way to do
Probably.
that.
I don't think you can do that. I've heard the most used estimate that I've heard was 1 in 1,000. So it's not even per nest. It's 1 in 1,000.
So we've got 213 hatchlings.
That's hopefully over 2,000 adults. We hope. And hopefully with Brian's genetics work, we'll learn more. You know, that's an ongoing project. He's got funding at least for next year. And he's got lots of samples that he still needs to process. So that'll definitely shed a lot more light.
And we don't ever tag hatchlings.
No. Most of the hatchlings get eaten. And so my feeling is that would be a very expensive experiment that you might learn more about, you know, in 30 years, and I think that the money could be better spent in conserving other aspects. Wish we could, though. If it was a cheap way to do it, I think that would be really interesting. Well, thank you very much. Thanks. Appreciate you listening.
Thank you, Kris, for a very informative lecture. And thank you all for being here again this evening, and look forward to seeing you next month at our Coastal Ecology Dinner Lecture Series, which is on the third Thursday of every month here at Dolphin Reef at 7 p.m. So hope to see you then. Also this month, we're introducing the Dolphin Reef Rewards program, so I encourage you all to please join, and we'll keep you informed for the future lectures that are upcoming every month. So thanks again, and have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you.